Hello everybody and welcome back to Safari Mack Explores North America. I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've all had a great week, and I want to thank you for tuning in to all my previous uploads this week, as well as postings on my Facebook page. But today we're getting back into the water with the humpback whale, or Megaptera novangeli. So, as we are actually getting pretty close to the shores of Alaska, I'd like to invite you all to stay tuned at the end of this episode for the reveal of our first Alaskan icon. But before we continue with Humpback Whale Part 2, as always, if you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Check out my Facebook page for the postings and also updates from conservation projects and all over the world, as well as tips that you can put into practice for conservation in your own backyard. And finally, if you have a question or if there's an animal that you would like me to do in the future, all you gotta do, just send me an email, which you'll always find the link to down in the description below. With that said, let's talk about the wild things. Now, as you could probably guess, being a humpback whale, they have a pretty expansive habitat with occupying nearly all of the world's oceans and seas. So you can imagine how difficult it really must be to fully document a birthing. However, one birthing opportunity did take place off the coast of Madagascar, and it was recorded when the fluke first appeared to when mom gave her final push within 4 minutes. Talk about a quick birth. Now let's talk about one of their special features. Their singing. Yes. Or really what we like to call their way of talking. Now, all the whales within a region usually share the same song, but each one has a different tune, or their tune is always changing. Some scientists believe that they're just trying to attract a mate, while others always believe that they're trying to communicate with other humpbacks, even if they were 20 miles away. Just like our fingerprints, humpback whales actually have different kinds of flukes. Now, I'm not saying that some are bigger or smaller. I'm talking about their pattern. So as you can see here with this humpback's fluke, it has a little bit of patches of white, like somebody accidentally painted a spot they weren't supposed to. While this humpback seems to have little black lines near the bottom part of his fluke, right? So this has been just like our orcas last week with their dorsal fins being different, with each one being different. This has been a very useful feature for biologists that are studying them in their natural habitats. Now, last week I talked to you about how whales in the northern hemisphere and in the southern hemisphere have pretty long migrations to get to warmer waters during the winter, right, to give birth as well as to attract mates. But I didn't exactly tell you exactly how big their migrations really can be. I mean, as you can see, in fact, whales that are probably occupying Alaska and then getting to around the Hawaiian Islands, that can take them as long as 36 days. They're within 36 days and covering over 3,000 miles of open ocean just to get to that winter ground. Talk about a long vacation. And finally, it may not look like it, but believe it or not, the humpback whale actually does possess the longest pectoral fins, or what we call the flippers, of any cetacean alive. As you can see, and here you can see right here. Here's a mink, here's a gray whale, and then here's even the blue whale, the largest. Yet the humpback possesses the longest pectorals. So, not bad. Now we need to talk about their past problems and the present challenges that they face. And unfortunately, back in the day, blood was spilled. So here's what I mean. Ever since the 16th century or so, whales had always been hunted. Not just for their meat, but also for their oil, which we know today was the source of how people kept their homes lit or lit the streets at night. So now, of course, we were just doing what we had to, but as a growing population, as a growing world, the demand for it just kept going and going. In fact, actually, believe it or not, if it wasn't for the discovery of oil that we know from coming from the ground, it's possible that the humpback whale and other species would have been hunted into extinction because of this. So thankfully, by 1966, we here in the U.S. put a huge ban on whaling. And it was a good thing, too, because at that time, it was estimated that 5,000 humpback whales all over the world were left swimming in the global seas. Now, since then, we have seen a great increase, and we've seen their populations grow. So it's estimated today that there are now 114,000 humpbacks swimming across the oceans. So a major conservation victory at the time, yes. Though in some parts of the world, whaling still takes place, but it's a very heated topic, and I don't want to go further into that because now we need to talk about the problems that they're occurring that are caused by us, but we never really originally anticipated. One of their biggest problems is fishing nets. So when whales and people, of course, try to fish in the same area, there can be problems. Now, some of you might think, well, you know what? He's pretty big. He might be able just to bust out of that, right? Unfortunately, it's not that simple. Think of yourself in your pool, in your local pool, right? After a while, you know how you start to get a little pruny in the skin? Now, picture yourself with something small and, like thin and stringy. Like, let's just say maybe dental floss or fishing line, right? You pull on it and all of a sudden you realize you got a little bit of a cut. Now, unfortunately, because these creatures are living in a free-floating environment, never knowing like gravity or having to pull against anything, as a result, getting entangled in this netting and this fishing line and ropes, this causes major deep cuts and as a result, some whales have actually lost their flippers. Some have even lost their flukes because of this. One whale, I don't know if it's specifically a humpback, has actually been seen swimming without a fluke, and he's doing fine, but unfortunately, we can see what the cause of it really was. Another major issue, boating. Just like our friend the manatee, boat strikes can be a major problem for humpbacks. Now, this comes from just speedboats or tourist boats or accidental hits, right? They don't mean any harm, but unfortunately, it's a lot more damaging than you may think. And what do I mean? I'll explain in a little bit. And finally, noise pollution is a major problem. Because this is a creature that depends on echolocation or sound in their aquatic world to be able to see where others are or find food, seismic blasting and this ship noise and even sonar are causing major problems for them, where soon enough they might go deaf. In fact, there's been a number of dolphin findings where dolphins are seemingly going deaf because of this. Now we're going to talk about how we can fix these problems. Now, there are a lot of laws that I'm about to mention with how humpbacks are being protected today. So I would like to just remind you, if you see any violations, you always want to contact the NOAA or the NOAA Marine Mammal Hotline at 8800-256-9840. You can tell them that maybe they're not respecting the laws of you cannot be more than 100 yards. You can't be more within 100 yards of a humpback whale, so you got to always give them their space and keep them and just respect their boundaries. Don't try to swim with them. Don't do anything like that. If you want to help further, join iNaturalist and report where you saw humpback whales, and you can even help contribute more to science, because scientists have discovered how incredibly important these animals are. Their waste ultimately feeds phytoplankton, plant plankton, which then feeds krill, which then feeds the humpbacks, as well as be a CO2 sinkhole. If you can help these animals, we're ensuring a bright future for the humpback whale and their beautiful songs. Join me next week in Alaska as we begin our journey with the salmon. Until then, though, this is Safari Mack. I'll see you all out.